million board feet of lumber up there, and I want it all.
We ask you to leave it, pure as found. We are to it, forever bound.
We are to it, forever bound.
There's nothing I can do to change your mind.
Maybe I can.
Today. It's the first in a series of Chuck Norris movie reviews, and today we're going to be talking about, yes, that famous Chuck Norris movie, Forest Warrior, indeed. And I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown as to what this episode is about, because I know you're asking that. And this is according to Wikipedia. Forest Warrior is a 1996 American adventure film starring Chuck Norris and directed by Norris's brother Aaron. The film was a direct-to-video release in the United States in 1996 and is perhaps best known since late 2011 as the source of a scene in which Chuck, a ubiquitous internet meme himself, stops a chainsaw by grabbing it with his bare hand, and the scene has been reposted numerous times on YouTube with views totaling several million, as well as made into an animated GIF for use on internet forums and message boards. Another memorable scene features a logger who air guitars with his chainsaw. So you can imagine the kind of stuff that's going to come up in this. But apart from Chuck Norris as Jebediah McKenna, we've got Terry Kaiser as the main villain in the piece, Travis Thorne. He's more famous as Bernie, the corpse from Weekend at Bernie. And we also have Loretta Swit, aka Hot Lips, as the sort of mother character in this. And then there are obviously other people in there as well. But it was nominated for 1997 Best Performance in a TV Movie Home Video by a Young Ensemble, and that's for the kids in this movie. And that's right, I said kids, Ian, didn't I? Because this movie, we've been watching the classics of Chuck Norris, and we've been enjoying it throughout the pandemic. But this is, we're getting here into the later career of Chuck Norris. This is post Walker, Texas Ranger, or during the time of. And his film roles here are varied, to say the least, and this one is very Chuck light. So it's largely a kids movie. And what were your thoughts then, Ian? Thinking, let's watch a Chuck Norris movie, and what we got in Forest Warrior.
Well, the first thing is, when you say we're going to watch a Chuck Norris movie, I go and sort of have a look at the DVD cover, read the blurb on the back. It said that Chuck Norris is like a forest spirit who can turn into a bear, a wolf, or an eagle. I thought, that sounds cool. And that's really all I knew about it. But then when I watched it, it was very apparent, yeah, he does all these things, but he's barely in it. It's very much a cast of young actors, kids, who are the main stars, and Chuck Norris pops up every now and again to help them. I like the idea of the film, but for me, I was bored.
And Neil, what were your thoughts? Because we had seen the trailer of this, and it kind of intrigued us because we were looking, what other Chuck Norris movies can we see? And because obviously, we've seen the main ones, and I have personally seen the main ones, but there's a lot of Chuck Norris movies I haven't seen, and we enjoyed watching those. But this was one of them, And you and I saw this. We watched this trailer together, didn't we? We found this somewhere online when we found the film, and we were looking through the list of Chuck Norris movies. And what were your thoughts then when you first saw the trailer?
Well, it was at a point where we had watched all the well-known Chuck Norris films, and we were getting into that point of slim pickings, shall we say, of the Chuck Norris library, and then we were just, as you said, we were just looking through some of the other films that we still have to watch, and this idea about Chuck turning into animals in the fourth word, this just sounded like, oh, this could be good, this could be comedy gold, because it felt like Manimal and Chuck turning into animals, and the trailer made it look more interesting. But like as Ian said, our expectations made us think of something different than what we actually saw.
And just to sort of go back to the sort of premise of the movie, this was directed by Ian's favorite director, Aaron Norris, brother of Chuck. Because we know when Aaron Norris directs a movie that it's going to be supreme. But the movie actually opens with Chuck Norris in the 1800s, slow motion, running through a forest. And it's unclear exactly what's happening, but then it's like a ghost story being told of how he was running to get medicine for his wife, and he gets attacked. But a notable thing about this is it was written by Ron Swanson, who wrote an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, but also he wrote the screenplay for another Chuck Norris movie, which we will be discussing in this series, and that is Top Dog. And as well as that, he also appeared as an actor in a 1996 movie starring Aaron Norris. So that's the connection here with the Norris family and the Norris movies, and he appeared in that. Now, that could be a movie for review, a movie called Overkill, so we may have to look that one out and see if Aaron Norris has an ounce of talent of his brother. I mean, we've already seen him in some of the movies, and he's had some screen time, and that's up for debate. But essentially, this movie is about kids, and it's about them hearing the story of the character that Chuck Norris is playing, and how he gets killed and becomes this spirit he basically gets found by a bear. Now, bear with me on this one. But he gets found by a bear who gives him magical morphing abilities, and this is where Ian was referring to. He becomes an eagle, a bear, and a wolf, and the line is, he's a spirit now, and it's like, well, he's not really a spirit. That's a spirit is too tame a word for this guy. He is the forest. And I also made a note, Hot Lips is the mother, which I already mentioned, Loretta Swit from MASH, who is one of the other main actors in this. So that's our starting point, and then we always have a meeting. We got the baddie who, he runs the sawmill, and he's trying to make a quick buck and, get rid of certain parts of the forest. He wants to tear bits and pieces down, and he's the baddie, and then we've got, as you were saying, we've got this long period of time where Chuck isn't in it, and it's his kid's adventure. But there was one bit I know, Neil, you laughed at this as well, is that the ghost of Chuck is sort of earwigging, or rather creepily hanging outside the window of these children, and he can kind of hear what they're thinking or whatever it is, and he says amen, and all this spiritual side comes through. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know. As you said, you once mentioned that in the later Walker, Texas Ranger episodes, that Chuck had this kind of religious vibe going, a kind of quest of God. So I'm wondering, think about that there.
It was more with Walker. It's more of a sort of, he has Native American heritage, so it's more a case of the spiritual side of things. But there are certainly a lot of parallels with this film and some of the later episodes of Walker, where you get that more kind of delving into the spirituality of, but also in the realization on screen of these things by shots of the sun through the clouds as a reaction shot from God and that kind of thing. Very much like the bits where he's kind of, trying to get to know the children. If the, that sounds horrible, but you know what I mean. It's a very innocent type of thing. It's just trying to bring out the joy of the kids and their love of the forest, and they've even got a cute little bear cub in there and all this sort of stuff. And I mean, what are your thoughts, Neil, on the whole film? As the progression of the movie to the final climax.
I guess the term schmaltzy can be applied to it, because as he said, there's this kind of spirituality he's trying to convey. You said, with this, I mean, even he's got the Native American cliche attire as well. So there is that spiritual, and even the way he said "Amen," it was very soft. It wasn't like hard hitting action. It was like very soft, as if he was trying to give a message about spirituality. As it was, we trying to take a break from the more action oriented stuff. So I think he is trying to carry some of that Walker vibe into the film.
I think too, the film is going for, and I think what Ian was saying at the time was, to kind of paraphrase Ian, it lacked the charm of J.J. Abrams or Steven Spielberg, where they're all on their bikes and they're going for an adventure, as in they just cut to them being in the forest. You could see that there was like a J.J. Abrams, Steven Spielberg sort of vibe that they were going for, but obviously they didn't have the budget that Steven Spielberg or J.J. Abrams has, so it's very much shortcut and shorthand. They saved all their money for the morphing scenes.
Well, it is a TV movie after all, so it would have as big a budget.
And actually, I noted that I've forgotten his name, but one of the visual effects guys in it worked on Star Trek Insurrection, among other films, and other projects for that. So the effects actually were one of the more impressive things about it, I thought, given the limitations.
Well, it kind of had the same limitations as Manimal, where like Jeff and Chase could try to transform it into any animal, but for budget reasons, you can only turn into like a panther or a hawk. And I felt like maybe it was something similar here with Chuck's transformations.
Did you not think that the hawk, as it were, seemed like very remote control, like a remote control plane in some scenes?
Probably the minor shots. Now, however, there is a pretty cool fact. There's a signature shot I've seen of Chuck Norris and Walker, and in another film we watched a couple weeks ago, the name's escaping me from it, but it's the one he does that one where he does a high kick into a windscreen of a car, kicking the person in the passenger seat. But this one here had him do it starting as a bear and then morphing into Chuck Norris as he does it. But it seemed to be doing that kind of animal transformation version of a movie he's already done before.
Well, it's Chuck Norris. I mean, you'd know him anywhere. If he jumps through your windscreen of your car, pretty much it's him. That I don't think Jared Padalecki, if that's his name, I don't think he will be doing any jumps through the window in the new series of Walker. But Ian, did you feel you were suffering through it then until you got to the action bits? What was your kind of opinion of the kids acting?
Well, I think first of all, the start of it was very good. Seeing his story, trying to save his wife, go for medicine, he gets attacked, and the action scene's actually quite good. So it starts off really interestingly. And then the end has some interesting bits and pieces by Chuck Norris as well. Coming up against the evil businessman, the baddie. It's just the bit in the middle. It just feels very slow and nothing's really happening that you really care about. So overall, again, I just felt it was a movie that needed something more in it. I'm not sure what. It's a film I watched and thought, as I said, it dragged a bit, and at the end of it, you sort of go away and sort of forget about it.
I wonder if it's Chuck Norris trying to be environmentally friendly.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Spirits have really shiny hair. Chuck Norris's hair is immaculate. in this movie.
That's not Timothy.
Must be.
The thing is, when Chuck does show up, he earns his money. That's what I found in this. He does earn his money when he shows up because he does what you would expect Chuck to do. And, I think Chuck, even today, if he was in a movie today in his 80s, you would still expect him to do a roundhouse kick. Now, he could be, instead of hellbound, he could be homebound in a home. And, or he could, be like Michael Caine and be like this elderly guy who can really actually kick ass.
Well, here's the thing. If Chuck Norris still is in good shape, he still probably could. But don't forget, Stallone just did another Rambo film.
Well, I mean, Chuck Norris is still training every day because there were some video posts of him doing that. Whether he can do it to the same degree, I don't know. But he certainly is still, according to the internet anyway, he's still doing that. So. The location is called Tanglewood Forest. And, it's basically the baddie is, logging conglomerate wanting to, get rid of all the trees of the precious forest that Chuck is the spirit of. And so the kids, they end up in this treehouse that is a historic treehouse. And one of the things is the villain of the piece has his own memories of this treehouse, and it kind of triggers some sort of humanity within him. But we've talked about this whole spirituality and nature, and I guess, as you were saying, it is an environmental message to kind of take care of the environment, because this whole idea that the environment is somehow alive or is a living thing in its own right, spiritually or otherwise, and that progress doesn't always have to mean the expense of nature. So there is a message with the movie. But what are your final thoughts on the ghetto blasting, little radios? Remember they steal the radios and things, and all the kind of little bits and bobs in the final end of the film. Do you think it has its own charm?
Again, I think it does, but the problem is in too small an amount. There's little bits throughout the film where you have a giggle, a laugh, but really, overall, I just think it's pretty forgettable.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty forgettable, because I think sometimes when we laugh, we're not laughing because the film's telling us it's a funny scene or showing us a funny scene. We're laughing in spite of it more.
We're not laughing with, we're laughing at.
Yeah, we're laughing at it, because that's been the fun of these Chuck nights in lockdown. As I said earlier, we basically watched this because lockdown has been on for so long that we actually managed to get through all of Chuck Norris's more well-known films at this point. So we just had to find some more obscure ones. And if when this lockdown started, if you told me I was going to get to watch every single Chuck Norris film, I probably wouldn't have believed you.
Even the ones that weren't available in the bargain bins in the pound shops. So we have even managed to go scour eBay for some of the we will actually look into some more. We've got three episodes planned so far, but there's so many Chuck Norris movies. We're going to pick some of the better ones, and we'll do some more episodes on those. But if you want to really kind of sum up the movie, how would you sort of explain this? I'll take it in turns to explain. If in a summary, if someone was saying to you, right, what's this Forest Warrior thing with Chuck Norris? Neil, what's your kind of very quick summary of what that movie is?
Chuck Norris plays a spirit of the forest. You can change it into any animal, and has to work with some kids to save the forest from being destroyed by an evil tycoon who wants to cut it all down for his own nefarious needs.
It could be an episode of the Raccoons, couldn't it? And Ian, what's your summary of it?
Chuck Norris as the spirit of the forest, defending the forest against an evil businessman who just wants to cut it down and make money. Along the way, he helps a bunch of kids sort of help him bring the evil businessman down.
And my summary of it is Chuck Norris, man, bear, wolf, eagle, saves the forest spiritually, helps the kids, kicks ass, stops a chainsaw with his bare hand. What more can you ask for in a movie? Amen. And so that brings us to a close for the episode to do with Forest Warrior. Unfortunately, it's one of those movies. There wasn't a lot to pack in because, you know, a lot of it, as you say, Ian, is sort of in a way filler. You know, there were some charming scenes, like you say, but I think as we sort of thought at the time, it had pacing problems, didn't it? You know, it was very slow. It had a good start, and then it sort of slowed down, and then it picked up again. But it was inconsistent, and therefore it felt like it went on for much longer than it actually did.
Yeah, this might sound evil, but you know, I watching the movie. I didn't really care if the forest got burnt down or demolished.
You wanted Terry Kaiser to win.
In some ways, yeah, because I thought he was the best thing about the movie.
Don't forget, this is a guy who made Playing a Corpse really good.
True.
He's a very underused actor, and in fact, we did a Baywatch Nights 2-part, which you can catch on Schmat, about the season 2 of Baywatch Nights, and Terry Kaiser shows up in one of the episodes, and it's a very small part, but he does add a certain amount to that part, and his job is to big up Teague as well, and that storyline provided a lot of fun for us, for any Teague fans. But yes, in this Terry Kaiser's performance, because he's not just a pantomime villain, that's the written role for him, but his own performance is more nuanced than that, and there is a bit of redemption. And when he's thinking back to his own childhood, you know, there's genuine reflection there, which, you know, given the part in the script, he does a lot with it.
And the best villains are always the villains who don't see themselves as the villains. The best villains never see, in their own mind, the best villains always see themselves as the hero.
Grotbags from the Pink Windmill, she never saw herself as the villain. She thought Emu was the villain. So all those years of going around, you know, it depends on your point of view. I mean, Lex Luthor, he in some way knew he was a criminal, but he kind of in some forms, sometimes he was a mad scientist, but in some forms he quite enjoyed being the villain. You know, he had a one-track mind, and some other movies and TV shows, the villain is a bit more one-track minded, but sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. And I think with a movie like this, it could well have been very two-dimensional. But
at the same time, we're not talking about the most nuanced supervillain.
We're talking about an actor who can do quite a lot with very little.
I mean, he did 2 films, Playing a Corpse. I mean, you know, there's 2 Weekend at Bernie's films. I know a lot of people like to forget the second one ever existed.
Bear in mind, in the second movie, he's a corpse for the entire movie, whereas at least in the original movie, Bernie is alive for a portion of it.
Because I said Playing the Corpse in the second one, the only thing he does in the second one is dance whenever he hears music.
Yes. And he's been in lots of other things as well. Anytime he's in something, you know, he lifts the performance, and he adds value to the show. But yeah, I mean, so that's it. I mean, that's all we can really say on the subject. But I just want to thank Neil for joining me again, and also our special guest again, Ian Lawther, for joining us once more for this discussion on Chuck Norris. It's not the last time we'll talk about Chuck Norris, but it is the first time on the channel that we're mentioning this. Should we say to people, go and find a copy of Forest Warrior, or would we say wait till it comes on TV?
If I wouldn't go out and buy a copy, and if you see it on TV, watch something else.
The thing is, I don't think it's ever been on TV. I don't think. I think even the TV stations won't think it even existed.
Perhaps, but you know, some of those channels are desperate for content, so you never know.
We did get some Chuck films on over Christmas on the Paramount Network.
Okay, well, that's it from me. See you next time.
Thank you very much for having me again, Johnny.
Thanks again, Johnny. Good times.
Amen.